reach Valencia, you realise you're back on the coast, which is a great relief. I love seeing the sea and the beaches and everything else there. And the drive from Valencia up to Barcelona is not quite on the sea, but you know you're very near the sea. As I've mentioned before, one of my great heroes in the 60s and 70s was Bob Dylan. Indeed, I considered myself more similar to Bob Dylan than any other writer or singer. And I wrote lyrics that were very much different from the lyrics written by other people at the time. Dylan was fantastic, and I did actually cover some of his songs. I liked his lyrics not only when they were political, which some of them were marvellous. I mean, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind, and the times they are a-changing. And also his personal ones, like Just Like a Woman, which I've already played to you. But I also loved his playful ones, and he wrote a song once which I thought was terrific. Now, what I tried to do is turn his very much folk songs into pop records. And this is my version of his song, $1 Million Bash.
Ooh, baby, ooh-wee, ooh, baby, ooh-wee, it's that $1 million bash. Well, that big dumb blonde with a wheel gorged and turtle, that friend of hers with his checks all forged and his cheeks in a chunk with his cheese and a cash, they're all gonna be there, that $1 million bash. Ooh, baby, ooh-wee, ooh, baby, ooh-wee, it's that $1 million bash. Everybody from right now to over there and back, the louder they come, the bigger they crack. Come now, sweet cream, don't forget to flash. We're all gonna meet there, that $1 million bash. Ooh, baby, ooh-wee, ooh, baby, ooh-wee, it's that $1 million bash. Well, I'm hitting it too hard, my stones won't take. I get up in the morning, but it's too early to wake. First it's hello, goodbye, then push and then crash. But we're all gonna make it to that $1 million bash. Ooh, baby, ooh-wee, ooh, baby, ooh-wee, it's that $1 million bash. Well, I looked at my watch, I looked at my wrist, I punched myself in the face with my fist. I took my potatoes down to be mashed, then I made it on over to that $1 million bash. Ooh, baby, ooh-wee, ooh, baby, ooh-wee, it's that $1 million bash. Ooh, baby, ooh-wee, ooh, baby, ooh-wee, it's that $1 million bash. Ooh, baby, ooh-wee, ooh, baby, ooh-wee, it's that $1 million bash.
Barcelona is the fifth largest urban area in Europe, after, I think, Milan, Paris, Madrid, and a complicated urban area somewhere. It is absolutely huge, which is not always a good thing. I know I said I like big cities, and I like the population in big cities, but there can be an enormous amount of traffic, plus a load of people doing all the things. Apparently there's the largest football stadium in Europe for Barca, the football team of Barcelona. And it's got a lot of nice things in it, but all the usual massive capitalist features. And you just can't help but feel it sort of doesn't actually seem to have a soul. That's my feeling. I wasn't there for very long, I must admit, and it just was the way I felt. Highly commercialised, very busy, absolutely huge and sprawling, impossible to find. But, you know, an interesting place, but not really for me. I wanted to talk about some of the films I've made. One of the first films I made was Vile Pervert, the musical, the story of my travails. But also I made a movie called Me, 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 the movie. And in it features a group of 3 girls called the Sirens, miming to a track I recorded way back in the early 70s with a fabulous group called the Angelettes, who I adored. And they did a great job. I was producing records then that I thought were a bit different. And one of my great heroes was a man called Shadow Morton. Shadow Morton made all the Shangri-La's records. You remember Leader of the Pack and Walking in the Sand? And those girl groups that sang slightly different lyrics and different tunes. I wanted to make a record like that. See what you think. I think it's one of my best ever songs and productions. Don't Let Him Touch You.
You meet a boy, bright sparkling eyes. He seems kinda nice, perhaps a little shy. He'll walk you home, kiss you on the doorstep. Next night he'll hold your hand. Don't let him touch you, don't let him touch you. He's playing the game of love and he's trying to see how much you'll let him have. And if he has you, he will run away and leave you. If he has you, he will leave you. Don't let him touch you. He'll talk and talk, how it's hard for guys. He'll be good to you, hold you when you cry. He is the only one, now your love life's begun. He'll hold you close to him. And don't let him touch you, don't let him touch you. He's playing the game of love and he's trying to see how much you'll let him have. And if he has you, he will run away and leave you. If he has you, he will leave you. Don't let him touch you, don't let him touch you, don't let him touch you. He's playing the game of love and he's trying to see how much you'll let him have. And if he has you, he will run away and leave you. If he has you, he will leave you. Don't let him touch you. He says he's going to quit. You don't know what to do that night. You love him so. You think perhaps you might. Your heart beats fast. It's a moment here at last. He'll hold your body tight. And don't let him touch you, don't let him touch you. He's playing the game of love and he's trying to see how much you'll let him have. And if he has you, he will run away and leave you. If he has you, he will leave you. Don't let him touch you. Don't let him touch you, don't let him touch you. He's playing the game of love and he's trying to see how much you'll let him have. And if he has you, he will run away and leave you. If he has you, he will leave you. Don't let him touch you, don't let him touch you. Don't let him touch you.
You may wonder why I'm talking about music rather than beautiful Barcelona and sensational Spain. Well, yes, you can see a sensational Spain and even a sensational ex-pop star having to pay at one of the many peages on the motorway to get into Barcelona. But I'll get there eventually. And I wanted to make the point that these days the music industry has become very dull. One of the reasons is because specialisation has taken place. Since there are very few executives, and I have to say I was one, who are able to spot mass appeal crossover hits, we don't actually get them on radio, on television, or anywhere else anymore. And most people these days get to hear their music by streaming on various places like Spotify and so on. They pay very little to stream, so as a result they can be curious. They tend only to be interested in a very narrow specialist area. If they like hip-hop or rap or garage or heavy metal or whatever, country and western music, classical music, they tend not to look anywhere else. In the days gone by, they used to indeed look everywhere else, and quite often would hear great music that they never thought they'd like, and as a result it would spread. And also there were huge profits in that, which there no longer are. But the main thing I feel sorry about is the way that vitally important creative arts have been basically destroyed or ignored by this. I essentially consider myself a producer, a music producer, and also a songwriter. And as you saw in the Angelettes, both of those qualities were, I think, clearly expressed. I love producing, I love writing. I don't mind singing. I do it adequately, and I usually do it myself because it's actually easier, and it doesn't matter too much who the vocal is by. Obviously with some tracks it really does matter. I did a demo for the Angelettes of Don't Let Him Touch You, but obviously it wasn't suitable, although actually in this day and age it might be considered suitable. But actually my great interest was creating something. To me, that is a work of art in its own way. And now we've made it for a movie as well, Me, 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 which you can watch for free anywhere on the internet. It's also become a visual work of art. I thought the three girls who played the Sirens were terrific, but especially brilliant was our wonderful makeup lady Linda Catlin, sadly now passed away, and her incredible makeup job, especially the eyelashes. I want to wear those eyelashes all the time, please. Anyway, that's the point I wanted to make. The art of production and the art of songwriting were so vital in the 60s, 70s and 80s even, and now they began to decline in the 90s when making videos became more important than the music. In the noughties and in the last decade that we've just gone through, they became less and less important, and the music industry now has virtually no producers. All they do is copy other producers and make things with computers online, and no songwriters. I mean, the last time you heard an interesting lyric, funny enough, was actually in the Grammys, where Bonnie Raitt won the Best Song Award for her single. I think it was called Just Like That, which actually had a really interesting lyric, a reasonably catchy hook in it, not much melody, but it was actually an old-fashioned song, and it beat out all those current songs which simply are not songs. We also just recently saw the death of Burt Bacharach, who was an incredible songwriter and producer and arranger. And funnily enough, I first came across him in 1965 when his main job was arranging for Marlene Dietrich, the superstar, one of the last great superstars, who also occasionally sang, if you could call it singing, and fell in love with my hit song Everyone's Gone to the Moon, and even the B-side Summer's Coming. And she demanded that he come to London and do an arrangement for her UK tour that she was doing that year, Well, he couldn't come because his wife, Angie Dickinson, was giving birth to their first child, and he had to be there in Los Angeles for it. But he did do the arrangements. He sang them over the phone to somebody who wrote them down, a copyist who wrote them down, and Marlena did indeed perform them all through her tour, and it was the huge success of her tour. I went and saw it on the first night in the Golders Green Hippodrome, and it was stunning, although she couldn't really sing. Streets full of people all alone. And, well, I mean, what can you say? Anyway, Burt Bacharach was a great songwriter. He was also a great producer and arranger. And he did do both of my songs. So for your delight, my original version of the B-side of Everyone's Gone to the Moon, which Marlena Dietrich said to me was a work of great art and told me I was a poet and a genius, while patting my face. I was able to look at her face and see she had no surgery whatsoever to help her look in her 70s and 80s, about 30 or 40. Summer's coming.
The rain is coming down, the wind is blowing around, the birds are flying, flying, summer's coming. People are out all over town, new suit, brand new gown. Everyone's happy, no one's crying. All over town, old folks are dying. The rain is coming down, the wind is blowing around, the birds are flying, flying, summer's coming. Children at play, girls and boys, new clothes, brand new toys, laughing and smiling, kites are flying, 60 years more, they'll be dying. Couples around, so in love, first kiss, stars above. They are so happy, they're not crying. All over town, old folk are dying. The rain is coming down, the wind is blowing around, the birds are flying, flying, summer's coming, summer's coming, summer's coming.
Well, that's it for this show of A Victim Bites Back. Are you feeling a bit short-changed? Because I haven't really told you very much about Valencia or Barcelona. Well, except I quite liked Valencia and I didn't really like Barcelona. But what can you do? One of the reasons for making this series, A Victim Bites Back, is it's a personal view of travel, and it tells you about me, the person, as well as the places I'm visiting and various other things that have happened in my life. I think that's quite important. Now, if you take a look at some of the other many highly talented makers of travel shows and other kinds of documentaries, you never know anything about Simon Reeve or Michael Portillo or Michael Palin or any of these people who actually are interesting people. I would quite like to know a bit about Joanna Lumley when she's telling me about Japan or other remote places, as well as looking at the places. So as usual, I'm doing something that nobody else is doing, and they all will be doing it in a few years' time, I'm sure, because believe me, after Entertainment USA, which was massively successful back in the 80s, and we got 9 million viewers, which is unbelievable. My records that I sang on sold 40 million copies in my recording career, admittedly under many different names, such as Shag and 100 Ton and a Feather, but all basically me singing. As a producer, I sold millions and millions and more by bands like Genesis and 10cc and shows like the Rocky Horror Show and gimmicky bands like the Bay City Rollers and all the rest of it. I think people are quite interested in some of those things in my part. If you're not, don't bother to watch. Anyway, I'll see you next time around for A Victim Bites Back, show 14. Ow!